And I'd like to continue by, again, thanking you for your attendance here tonight for MIFA's After the College Acceptance webinar. My name is Jonathan Hughes. I'm the Associate Director of Planning and Education at MIFA. And I know that we had initially scheduled a lot of live events, but for obvious reasons, they all had to go sort of back to the webinar status. So again, I want to thank you for keeping with us. And if you have any questions throughout, be sure to just submit them, and we can either answer now or after the webinar. So the way we always begin these webinars, of course, is just with a word about MIFA really quickly. And if you are on this webinar, you probably know a little bit about us, but MIFA is the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. We're a not-for-profit state authority created back in 1982 to help the families of Massachusetts to plan, save, and pay for college. So we do that in a variety of ways. We do a lot of educational outreach like this. As I mentioned before, of course, in light of recent events, these numbers will probably look different next year, but we typically do about 500 seminars and webinars across the state every year on topics like college savings, college admissions, college financing, after the college acceptance, managing student loan repayment, etc. You have any questions about the financial aid process or anything having to do with college financing, you can talk to MIFA. We have a guidance team that is available even now with everything that we're going through to help you with any questions that you might have. So you can call us at that number, 1-800-449-MIFA. You can email us at collegeplanning@mifa.org. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the social media sites. In addition to all this education and outreach, we also do the savings vehicles from Massachusetts, the Massachusetts U Fund and the U Plan, which is the prepaid tuition program. And we offer low-cost, fixed interest rate student educational loans. So that was what we were actually initially created to do, was to offer loans for families in Massachusetts. However, as the cost of college continued to rise, obviously that wasn't sufficient to fulfill our public service mission of promoting access. So we branched out and created the savings programs and the educational outreach programs as well. You can get our emails by signing up on mifa.org, and you can check our resources. Everything that is going to be said tonight in this webinar, in this presentation, lives on mifa.org as well. So you can go and access that content at your convenience whenever is easy for you to do. There's also a lot of online tools, calculators, blogs that are going to have topics that are relevant to you. That is on mifa.org, and I would encourage you to take a look on that site and to take advantage of all the things that we have to offer there. Incidentally, in addition to all that, you'll be receiving the PowerPoint slides emailed to you if you're registered for this, and you'll be receiving a link to the recorded webinar as well. So in addition to all that is just to say really that after tonight, we are still here to help you. I don't expect this to sort of be the end of your questions for financing college and paying for college. So please take advantage of us in whatever way is, as I said, easy for you to do. Now, even in the midst of everything going on, we're still here to talk about something really happy, which is you're nearing the end of this process. Congratulations on your college acceptances to the students and parents that have received them. We're going to talk about making that deposit soon, but you're nearly there. So you've got college acceptances, which is something to be celebrated and congratulated on all your hard work as students and as parents. I know it's hard for parents as well in a few ways. So before we go on any further, we always just like to take a minute to say you've achieved something that you should be proud of. So congratulations. Now, in addition, what we're going to talk about tonight actually is really understanding your financial aid offers. And the reason that we do this seminar actually is we had colleges come to us say that this is a real need, that people have these financial aid offers from different colleges and they're unsure of how to read them and how to make the best decision for themselves going forward. So it can be very confusing. I always talk about my wife went back to school about 2 years ago. She only applied to one school. We got a financial aid offer and it was fine, it seemed clear and everything, but it still left us with a few questions. And so if you've got more than one, I can understand that it can be very confusing. So we're going to help you to understand your financial aid offers and learn how to compare them and to know what the balance due at each college is. Now, hopefully you have applied, you filed your FAFSA, or whatever forms that you need to file. If you have not applied for aid yet, we can talk about some options because there's still options available for you, and you can probably actually still file some of those forms. So it's not necessarily too late on everything. So we'll help you once again to learn to calculate the balance due at each college. To make a financially wise college decision, college educations, college degrees are important investments, and they do help students with their earning power throughout the rest of their life. But it's also very important how they're financed. So this is a really crucial time. So we'll help you to make that financially wise college decision. And then also of huge importance, developing a plan to pay for the college bill. So I think a lot of times, especially when there's some uncertainty and some angst surrounding how people are going to pay for college, sometimes parents, sometimes families, sometimes students don't really want to look too deeply at the details to see if it's doable because, they're afraid that it won't be. So, but it's very crucial that you look now and develop a plan for, as I said, paying the college bill. If I haven't mentioned this already, in fact, I know I have, but I'll say it again. If you have questions, please submit them and I can answer them as we go or at the end. So anyways, that's what we're going to cover tonight. The first thing we're going to do is hopefully you've got some financial aid awards there and you have some examples of financial aid. And if you're wondering how this was decided, just a brief discussion on financial aid and how the college, federal government, state government decides how much financial aid you're eligible for and how much financial aid you get. So generally there's two types of financial aid, or it's granted on two different metrics. The first one being merit-based aid. So when you think of merit-based aid, think of things like academic scholarships, athletic scholarships, artistic scholarships. The common denominator there is that merit-based aid is awarded on student achievement or recognition of student achievement, or something that the student has done or who the student is. So the first thing you want to understand about merit-based aid is it really varies wildly from school to school. So some colleges give out a lot of merit-based aid. Some don't give out any merit-based aid. It really depends on the college. So if you see a scholarship, and the word scholarship is an indication that this is a merit-based award. If you see scholarships from one school and not at another school, it doesn't necessarily mean that second school doesn't really want your student. It just may be a question of policy that they don't grant merit-based aid, or capability that they're not really able to do so. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you've applied for financial aid, you've done it for the year, you got a financial award for the first year, and you need to file your financial aid forms every year for the most part. So if you have a scholarship there, it looks like a merit-based scholarship, you should ask the college to see if this is renewable from year to year, or is this just a freshman year scholarship? Is this going to go away? If it is, you want to know that. If it is renewable, you want to know what the student needs to do in order to renew that every year. So typically there's a GPA or something that the student has to meet. If it's an athletic scholarship, there might be some other benchmarks that the student needs to meet, whatever it is, just make sure that the student knows what they have to do in order to be eligible to renew, so that they can do it. The very few times, unless something really drastically changes in your finances from year to year, your financial aid award letter should be about the same. The very few times that I've talked to parents who've seen a big decrease in financial aid, it's been because the student did not qualify to renew their scholarship for the next year. So you don't want that to happen. Most financial aid granted in a year is need-based financial aid. So not merit-based, but need-based. So when you filed your FAFSA, when you filed your CSS profile, if you needed to do that, they were taking all that information, how many people are in the household, how many students are going to be in college, how many, what the income is, what the assets are. They took all of that and put it through a formula and determined what your financial aid eligibility was. So you got that number, the expected family contribution, and that was the number that in the case of the FAFSA, the federal government felt that you should be able to shoulder or absorb for the FAFSA for a year. And so that's based on a standardized formula in the case of the FAFSA, certainly. In the case of the profile, it's an institutional formula, but again, every family goes through the same one. So you probably remember having that expected family contribution. And so this sets your eligibility for need-based aid. So when you're thinking about need-based aid, think about things like grants, work study, the federal direct student loan, whether it's subsidized or unsubsidized. Those are all examples of need-based financial aid. So everything that the federal government does, whether it's Pell Grants or federal direct student loans, work study, those are all need-based programs. Most of what the state offers is need-based, although they have some merit-based awards as well, and some things from the college as well are need-based. So, but although merit-based aid typically is from the college. Somebody's saying here that my voice is going in and out. Sorry, I apologize. I don't know what would be causing that. But all I can do is ask you to bear with me, and hopefully it will clear up. Let me see if I can fix it. This here is just a sort of sample financial aid offer. You can see it's just sort of generic mock-up, but it contains all three types of aid, which are grants and scholarships. And the thing that you should understand about grants and scholarships, that's what's called gift aid. It's free money. It doesn't have to be repaid. So it's the best kind of financial aid. If you see grants or a scholarship there, you don't have to pay that back. That just comes right off the bill. Work study. So work study is a federal program by which the student can, they have a certain amount in this example here, federal work study award of $750 in the fall and $750 in the spring, for a total of $1,500. So that means that the student can go and get a work study job on campus and earn up to $1,500 that year by working a job on campus. The thing to understand about that is that you're rewarded this money, and that's great. If you want it, the student has to go find the work study job, work the hours, and earn the money. And they get paid in a regular paycheck just like any other job. I remember when I was in school, I had a work study job. I answered phones in an office on campus for, a few hours a week, and I got paid $150 or so every 2 weeks. That was my living money at the time. So people always ask, can you turn around and pay tuition with work study? Yes, you can do whatever you want with the work study money. I tend to think that most students probably used it the way I did, which is for their living expenses when they were a student. But as we'll see later on, that still goes towards part of the cost of attendance. But if they don't do that, if they don't earn the money and work the hours, then you lose that money. So it's just sort of on the table. So you've got it. It was in your reward, but the student has to go and find that job. Now, colleges handle this part of it differently. Sometimes colleges want students to come to the financial aid department to look for work-study jobs. Sometimes the financial aid office sends out sort of blast to all of their work-study students with all the listings for jobs. So if you're unclear about how it works at the college that you're interested in attending, or that your students interested in attending, just contact the financial aid office. And that's going to be a theme that you hear throughout this presentation, is to contact the financial aid office. Hopefully you've discovered through the FAFSA and the profile, if you have to do it through that process, that they are a resource for you, to help you pay for college and to help you with all of your questions about financing. So and once again, if you're unclear about work-study processes, talk to the financial aid office at your college, since colleges do it a little bit differently. The last type that we have here are loans. Now, of course, I don't mean that any loan that you might get is financial aid. What I'm talking about when we talk about financial aid being loans is this particular program that we see here, which is the Federal Direct Subsidized and Unsubsidized Loan. And so the reason that is considered financial aid, and this number here, by the way, total number of $5,500, should probably look familiar to all of you. That's the freshman year loan limit for a Federal Direct Subsidized and Unsubsidized loan. So this is how much a freshman student can borrow in their own name. So that's a part of the reason why these are considered financial aid. These are, for the most part, the only loans that students can really get in their own name without having to have a parent or somebody else co-sign, because these are the only loans that are not contingent upon a credit approval to be approved for these loans. Basically, you kind of get these loans when you file your FAFSA. Now, there is a portion of this that is contingent on financial needs. So depending on your financial needs, some of these loans may be subsidized by the federal government. So what that means is when the student is in college and they're attending classes, they're not asked to make payments on these loans while they're in school. They're what's known to be in deferment. On the subsidized portion of these loans, there's no interest accruing on the loan while it is in deferment. So the government is paying the interest while the student is in school, and that loan is in deferment on the subsidized portion. On the unsubsidized portion, there is interest accruing. So for $5,500, at least $2,000 of that is always going to be unsubsidized, and up to $3,500 may be subsidized. Or it could be, and some of you may see this, that all $5,500 is unsubsidized. So it really depends upon the financial need of the family in the calculations. So having said that, if you have a subsidized loan and an unsubsidized loan and you are not interested in the unsubsidized portion and you just want to take the subsidized portion, you could do that. You can take any part and leave any part of a financial aid offer. So you don't have to take the whole thing to take one part of it. Now, if you have a subsidized or unsubsidized loan and you want to make payments while the student's in college, you can do that. It's a good thing to do. You're just not required to do it. But if you can pay it on interest or pay it on principal even, of course, that's going to make it a lot easier when the student goes to enter repayment 6 months after graduation, which is when these loans go into repayment. Here we also have a representation of all the different sources of financial aid. So you get some money from the federal government here in the form of a Pell Grant and an SEOG, which is a supplemental grant. You have some state-based financial aid in the form of the Mass Grant. And then you have some college financial aid from the ABC University grant here. So it's a good financial aid package. I don't know how much college is at ABC University, but $51,000 is a good amount to be getting in financial aid. So, but one thing to understand is, of course, financial aid offers look different. There was a study done a few years ago that cataloged just how many different ways colleges talk about the same things. So, there are a lot of different terms used. This federal direct loan was once called a Stafford loan. Sometimes they don't even say the word loan, so it can be very confusing. If you have questions, like I said, definitely take advantage of MIFA and call us or email us with any questions. Now, you must accept all or part by the college deadline, so you have to make your deposit by May 1st or later. And the reason that we say or later is with coronavirus and all of the disruption that it's caused, some colleges have pushed back their deadline to June 1st. Many colleges have not. They've kept May 1st as their deadline. They still think it's best to do that. So the only way really to know is to check the admissions office on the college website and make sure that whatever it is, you don't miss the deadline that you're looking for, especially at your top choice college. Now, I want to take just one more minute here, maybe more than 1 minute, and talk about federal direct student loans. These are really the only loans that are, as I said, considered financial aid, and really the only thing that MIFA says that sort of everybody should do. Typically, we don't assume that role, but if you are going to be borrowing anything to get through college, as many, if not most families are, we do recommend that you start by taking these loans first because they're typically the best options for students. Part of the reason is because the student is the sole borrower without a credit check. The way we talk about student loans generally is that people just assume that students can go and borrow whatever they need to borrow in their own name and just pay it back after college. And it really doesn't work that way for the most part. Only on these federal direct student loans can that happen. So the student can go in without a credit check, assume the loan here. Freshman year, $5,500. Sophomore year, $6,500. Junior year, $7,500. And senior year, $7,500. So those are your loan limits every year that the student can borrow. We talked about the subsidized and unsubsidized and the difference between them. And just to let you know, the interest rate, which is fixed, this year coming up is 4.529%. Oh, no, sorry, that's not this year coming up. It was last year. So 4.529% for 2019-2020. That typically gets set in the middle of the summer. It's fixed to a 10-year treasury bill, so it's fixed every year. So you're going to have different rates for each loan, but that's going to be fixed. There's a 1.059% origination fee. It's deducted from the loan. Now, as you said, by filing your FAFSA, you're approved for these loans. How do you actually go about and get them? Is you have to sign the student, since the student is the only person that's actually responsible for this, has to complete entrance counseling and sign what's called a master promissory note. They would do that in all likelihood at studentaid.gov, although if you have questions, yet again, you can contact the financial aid office and they can direct you, but that's typically where it's done. As I said, you're not expected to make payments while the student is in college. The other thing I want to mention, and the big reason why this is considered financial aid while other loans are not, is that there's a lot of flexibility in how these can be repaid. So we see here the average loan limits, or the annual loan limits rather, every year. If a student takes all of these and with the interest, with the origination fee deducted, et cetera, it's going to be around $27,000 in debt if they take each one of these loans every year that they're going to be responsible for. So around $27,000. The standard repayment term on the federal direct student loan is 10 years. So if you're paying back a loan or 4 loans totaling $27,000 at the interest rate of 4.5% or thereabouts, over 10 years, that's going to be about a $300 a month monthly payment. So if that is doable, then great. It's always easier, or better rather, least expensive to pay a loan off quicker. If that's a problem, if it's too onerous to make those payments, there's a lot of different ways that you can reduce that monthly payment. You stretch out the repayment term to 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. Make the payments as low as 10 or 15% of your monthly discretionary income. There's about a dozen different repayment plans you can get on. That's just not an option with really any other loans. There's also public service loan forgiveness options, where if you're on one of those income-based repayment plans that takes 20, 25 years or so, and you're working at a qualified nonprofit for 10 years, the balance of your loan can be forgiven. If you leave college and return, it can be placed back into an in-school deferment. If you go to graduate school, the deferment can be continued. There are forbearance programs. There's a lot of different options and a lot of flexibility in programs to help graduates pay. So that's why these loans are considered financial aid and why they're really recommended. You may be in a process known as verification at this point. And what that is basically the colleges or the college has questions on your financial aid forms that you filed. Now, if they have reached out to you, and they might have done so by mail, they might have done so by email or through a portal, they will be requesting documents for you to get to them so that they can resolve whatever conflict or whatever question it is that they have. My only real advice is and they should be very specific as to what they need. My only advice is to contact the college, get them what they need as quickly as possible, because without that being resolved, they won't be able to finalize your financial aid offer. So if you have not received an offer yet from college and you have received a notification like this, that's what's holding up your offer. So again, especially when we're talking about federal aid, they really need to be able to point to their process and their evidence that they have to show that they're in compliance with the federal regulations. So, you might have been asked to provide a tax return transcript when you were filing the FAFSA, if for one reason or another, and there's a few different ones where you were not able to use the IRS data retrieval tool. So there's that tool that you can pull your tax information directly from the IRS and populate it into the FAFSA. Well, not everybody can use that form, use that tool. If you cannot use that tool, the odds are very high that you'll be selected for verification. So the college is probably looking for a tax return transcript. So you can go to the IRS website and use that tax transcript request form to request that for free. This may include, they may have sent a verification worksheet. They may be looking for asset account statements. If it's a citizenship issue or maybe a name issue where name doesn't quite match, they might be looking for something from the Social Security Administration, whatever it is. Just again, they will not be able to finalize your financial aid package unless they get the answers to those questions. So again, to hit that theme, reach out to the financial aid office if there are questions. Oh, excuse me. Let me go back. If you have not applied for aid yet, if you haven't filed a FAFSA or a profile or a school financial aid award, you can still file a FAFSA. You can file a FAFSA throughout the year and still be eligible for your federal aid. So your work study or federal direct student loan programs, you can still file. The deadline to file to be eligible for state-based financial aid is May 1st. So you still have time there as well. You can still file and be eligible for your Mass Grant programs, John and Abigail Adams, if that's an option. Whatever programs that the state offers, you're still eligible to receive that, and you need to file a FAFSA in order to be eligible for a lot of those programs. The thing that is probably concerning is that most college financial aid deadlines have already passed. So again, I would contact the college. It's not likely that you'll be eligible to receive financial aid from the college if you miss their FAFSA or deadline or their profile deadline. But talk to the financial aid office, see if there's any option or what option exists. Payment plans are open to all, and of course anyone can apply for private loans. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on in the presentation, payment plans and loans. But there are things that are not contingent upon filing financial aid forms. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but those things are open. So if you've been waitlisted, which is, unfortunately a fairly common and ever more common occurrence these days. I think something like 40% of colleges are waitlisting or using waitlists. Just it can be confusing. So what do you do when you are on a wait list? And, I always feel like maybe it's just the calls that I get, but it's invariably the top choice of a student that they've been waitlisted at. If you're interested in attending a college that you've been waitlisted at, you might have to formally request or accept, rather, a spot on the wait list. So it's not just like you're on the wait list and you're just waiting. You need to actually go and be proactive and accept that spot on the wait list. Write a short note to the admissions counselor letting them know that you're still interested in attending the college. It's still your top choice. Keep up your grades while you're in your senior year and update the school with the recent grades. That will bolster your case to be admitted to that school. And keep in touch with the school, whether it's emails, over social media. Colleges pay attention to that. They are looking at something called demonstrated interest. So, how committed, how interested is a student in attending that college? So that's going to factor into their decisions. Unfortunately, I skipped over this top here, but I'm going to return to it now. Some schools have a very long list and never accept a student from it. In fact, there was a report from Inside Higher Ed. I think it's that 23% of admissions officers say they use the wait list to reject strong applicants. So, that doesn't happen everywhere. I don't want to stress you out, but sometimes that does happen. You should find out as much information you can from the college. One thing to understand, and it's another kind of unfortunate thing, is that a lot of colleges, once they are accepting students off the wait list, will look at financial need as a factor. The reason is that they've granted almost all of their financial aid dollars already, and when they're accepting students, they might not accept a student that evidences a lot of financial need if they don't have it to give that student. So it's something that may happen. A student may be accepted off the wait list, but may not receive a lot of financial aid. So if you're stuck in the situation where you have to make a deposit by either May 1st or some later date, you should submit an enrollment deposit at another school, because you really just don't want to miss out on any school when you're waiting for your top choice that you might have been waitlisted at. And then another thing to consider too, just to let you know, enrollments are usually non-refundable. So if you do make a deposit and then you get in and you hear that you want to attend that other school, you're not likely to get that first deposit back. And deposits can range from a small amount to a rather large amount. So just to think about that in your process. So here we come to sort of the nuts and bolts of this here, which is calculating the balance due. And we have a tool on MIFA.org here that sort of helps you to do that. I think you can do up to 6 colleges at a time. And, this can help you. It's not going to be ironclad, but it'll give you a really good idea. So what you can do here is list the charges, subtract the financial aid, and then it'll give you your balance due. But for the charges, we're looking at only a direct cost. So there are 2 types of costs associated with the cost of attendance overall, which are directly billed expenses, and they're listed here. So tuition and fees, room and board. I'm sorry. There's some indirect costs as well, like books and supplies, transportation to and from college. You might have to estimate some of these. Health insurance, which you may want to waive because students can stay on their parents' health insurance up until the age of 26. Every college requires you to have health insurance. They build that in. If you want to waive that and stay on your parents' health insurance, make sure you contact the financial aid office so that they can waive that cost. But let's go to that and use that tool right now. Okay. So let's say we get college. I don't want to make it a real college. Let's say College A, and College A is a 4-year private in New England here, and we'll give it a $50,000 tuition and fee figure. We're living on campus, of course. Why not? $12,000. Books and supplies. You know, I don't have a good figure here, but let's say that's $1,500. Transportation to and from school. Let's zero it out. Health insurance, we're going to waive that, so let's zero that. Other costs, living expenses, let's say $2,000. If you scroll down here, you'll be able to see that it's totaling up our annual costs as we put them in here. So we see total annual costs, $63,500. We haven't put in any aid yet, so let's give ourselves, what with all the stress, let's give ourselves a good financial aid package. So let's say total federal Pell Grant. Let's say we've got $2,500 federal Pell. SUOG, nothing from them yet. State scholarships, let's give us another $2,000. College, the college really came through for us though. So let's say we've got $35,000. Well, no, let's give us $30,000. Don't have any other outside scholarships. We do have our federal direct loan of $3,500 for subsidized, $2,000 unsubsidized, and that gives us, what does that give us? Okay, looks like we could have taken $35,000, but yeah. So this is going to give us our aid here of $35,000, $34,500 for gift aid, $5,500 for student loans, and the remaining cost of $25,500. And this is not, you know, atypical for this area to receive a really generous financial aid package and still have a substantial balance afterwards. Now let's say we go up here and we want to compare this against a different college here. Whoop. Good God. Okay. Let's say College B. We'll make this a public, so we'll say that's going to be, our cost is going to be what, $15,000 for tuition. Room and board, let's give it $12,000 again. Books and supplies, very similar. Transportation, again, we're living on campus, but health insurance we're waiving, and other costs, living expenses, $2,000. Okay, so now again we got our Pell Grant of $2,500. Zero. State grants and scholarships at $2,000. Let's say we have a $7,000 scholarship from the college. We've got our 35 and our 2. And what do we have left? Whoop, excuse me. Around $15,000. So you're on the hook for about $10,000 more at the first college than you were at the second college. Now again, this is, we've got 4 here, but I think you can build this out, or maybe it's only 4. But anyways, it's a good tool to use to really compare costs and see, really at the end of this, what we want you to be able to do is to have a plan in place. So know what you're responsible for the first year, have a 4-year strategy if that's your plan, and then figure out how you can finance that. Okay. So once again, what's the net price at each school? Things can look different from college to college, but what is really, when all is said and done, the difference? So which colleges can your family afford? It's a really difficult conversation to have sometimes, especially early, but early is the best time to have it. So remember, this is a 4-year proposition if you're going to a 4-year school, and especially if you're planning on attending graduate school, right? So depending on the major or the choice of career, you could be looking at 4, 5, 6, 7 years of school. The plan here being, remember, to limit borrowing. So remember, the student has their own financial aid loans that they have, that they're responsible for, those federal direct student loans. So they're already part of the financial aid package. Anything after that is going to require the loan to be credit approved. So a big part of considering this strategy of a 4-year college is knowing what that loan payment is going to look like after 4 years, after 5 years, after 6 years, whatever it's going to cost, and who is going to be responsible to pay what, and is this financially doable? So just realize the student has their own loans that they're responsible for. A lot of the time, and I know this just from answering phones, students assume that parents are going to pay, parents assume that students are going to pay. Have that conversation now so that you know, first of all, if it's doable for all of you put together to do it, and then secondly, how you're going to do it if it is. So select an affordable college that makes financial sense. It's really what the message of this whole presentation is. The worst thing is to see somebody who didn't apply to more than one college, or one type of college, and they have a bill that they can't afford to pay at the college that they want to go to. So make sure that you have a range of colleges that you're looking at in terms of price. If there has to be a difficult decision that gets made, it's better to make it now than to really sort of try to push through, stretch every dollar through the first year, and then be out of luck the subsequent years. And we can start at a less expensive school and transfer into the student's top choice if it's out of reach financially for 4 years, but maybe not for 1 or 2. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. So consider that strategy. Now we say that once you have your financial aid offer, there's really only 3 ways that you can use to pay the college bill. The first one being past income. So if you have any savings, so any 529 college savings plans, prepaid tuition plans, again, that's the U Fund and the U Plan in Massachusetts, both MEFA programs, but any way that you can save is a good way to save. If you have savings, bonds, stocks, CDs, any assets, any gifts maybe from relatives that you can leverage, it's good to exhaust those before moving on to other sources. So if you are a customer of the U Plan or the U Fund, if you have savings invested in either one of these programs and you want to talk about having those allocated to a college or to you, these are the numbers and the contact information to get in touch with those folks to do that with. So past income is one, present income is the other, and this is something that I mentioned on the slide about if you haven't filed for financial aid yet, is an interest-free monthly payment plan. Pretty much every college utilizes an interest-free monthly payment plan. It's handled by an outside provider for the most part. For a fee, usually a small one, anywhere between $65, $85 or so. Depends on the college. You can sign up for one of these monthly payment plan programs, and they range in length from anywhere from 5 months to 12 months. And whatever you can afford to pay on a monthly basis goes directly against tuition. So every dollar of it, none of it goes against interest, unlike borrowing. So like I said, I when my wife went to school, the first year we borrowed. The second year we continued with the federal loan, but we were able to use this interest-free monthly payment plan. and were able to not borrow. So it was a really great option. But even if you can't make it to the point where you're not borrowing anything, it is worth it, once again, to pay what you can out of pocket, to sort of stretch every dollar that way before you move on to borrowing. Plans typically begin in May, June, or July, so that's when you're going to be on the lookout for that. And if you haven't heard of these, which a lot of people have not, contact the financial aid office, and they can tell you who they use as a provider and give you that information. So a really, really great option. Once you exhaust your past income and your present income, the only thing that's left is future income, which is borrowing loans. Now, the fact is that if you're looking at a $30,000 balance or a $20,000 balance or a $10,000 balance, it may be very difficult, if not impossible, for you to pay that using your savings and your income. And I understand that. I couldn't do it either. But like I said, it is worth it to do what you can, especially given the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, it takes about 10 or 15 years to repay student loans. So, the fact is that many, if not most, families are going to be borrowing to get through 4 years of college. That's not necessarily a problem. The problem is when people borrow more than they can afford to pay back, or borrow more than what they absolutely need to borrow. So the way that you want to think about this is to think, once again, about total enrollment, 4 years, and total debt. So consider the post-graduation monthly repayment figure. So you can kind of go on now and see, if you borrowed $10,000 or $20,000 this year, what that's going to be on a monthly payment to repay that. You multiply that by 4. Is that something you're able to do? And if so, how? And if not, what do you need to get that number to? And is that something that you can do using a combination of savings, present salary, and loans? So another thing you may want to consider are, what's the career? What are the majors that the student is studying? What career are they choosing? So sometimes, people are okay borrowing a lot of money if the student is going into a job that is going to pay them a lot right away. So, especially colleges that or careers that might take a lot of schooling have a sort of return on investment factor there, where it might be medicine, it might be law. I always think of things like engineering or pharmacy, things that pay a lot right away. If the student is not planning on joining those careers, then maybe you that does factor in the decision where that student is going to go to college. So when you're looking at borrowing loans, we do have a webinar that we offer in June and July every year about comparing different types of student loans. Once you get past the federal student loan programs, there's any number of private loans available, MIFA being one of them, but any kind of bank, Sallie Mae, Citizens Bank, lots of private student loan lenders. So it can be very sort of overwhelming to try to look at them all and try to compare them all. So we have this webinar here. I'm not going to tell you which one's better, of course. It's all dependent upon your circumstances, but we are going to tell you about things that you want to be looking at. So things like interest rate, whether it's fixed or variable interest rate. How long is the repayment term? Who's the primary borrower? Is it the student? Is it the parent? Are they both responsible? So things like that people really need to know, just to make sense of which option is going to fit them best. Now, since all these loans are going to be based on credit approval, it's good to know your credit history now. The reason is, and everyone's entitled to a free credit report every year. It's annualcreditreport.com. It's definitely not uncommon for things to be on a credit report erroneously that negatively affect your credit. So you want to have those things removed, but that takes time sometimes. So for example, you might see something on there that is wrong, that's making your credit appear worse than it is, you need to file a dispute, and that can take up to 45 days to be resolved and for the resulting correction to be made in your credit score. So the time to do that is before you need to start applying for loans. So you can start that at any time. Just to give you an idea of how much things cost and where you can go to sort of figure out what these monthly payments on these loans are going to be. This is the calculator that MEFA has on our website, and these are specific to MEFA's loans. So you see here, we have an amount of $20,000 that in this example the family is borrowing. So you have to put that in up here. You see it's $20,000 years before graduation. This is a freshman year, so let's say it's 4 years before graduation. Now, the interest rate that you're going to pay is based upon your credit score. So here we have fair, good, or excellent. And let's say we've selected good here, and we've calculated this amount. So we have 5 different loan options for MEFA. And I'll go through them not to really talk about our programs, but just to show a few principles of paying these things. So the first, we have immediate repayment with a 10-year repayment term. That means that the repayment is going to begin while the student is in college. So for the MEFA loan, the student is a co-applicant on the loan and thus equally responsible with the parent. However, for the most part, they need a co-applicant to be approved because most students just don't have the credit sufficient to be approved on their own without a co-applicant. And for the most part, that ends up being the parent. It doesn't have to be. It can be anybody who's creditworthy. Any citizen that's credit or permanent resident that's creditworthy, and so that's who we're going to base the loan. We're going to base the loan on the highest credit score on the application. So assuming an immediate repay, somebody, either it's the student or the parent, is going to have to be making the payments while the student is in college, borrowing $20,000 a year, and in school monthly pay. So it's $215.44. for your monthly payment every month. Over a 10-year life at a 5.15% interest rate, the total cost of your loan, if you paid every payment on time, no more, no less, is going to be $25,852 about, in 80 cents. So that is, you'll see, the sort of least expensive loan. You have to pay more up front, but over the long run, it's going to be less expensive. We have very much the same option, except instead of a 10-year repayment term, it's a 15-year repayment term. So you can see that has the effect of making the monthly payments lower. So $163.82. So fairly lower. It's also going to add, the interest rate's a bit higher, 5.4%. It's going to add about $4,000 to the overall cost of the loan. Now you can pay these down early and that number would go down on any of these, but just if you make every payment on time, no more, no less. Now we have this option here, which is an interest-only payment. So if you are choosing to make the payments while the student is in school only be the interest to keep them low, you see that interest rate, we want to go down here, is about 6.7. So the interest rate's getting higher as you're spacing out these payments. So an in-school monthly payment here, we are just paying the interest, $112.93 every month. When the student leaves college and it goes up to interest and principal, it's $216.97. You see an increase of about another $5,000, so $34,000. So again, the longer you take to pay the principal down, the more interest you're going to be paying. And now we have our final two, which are our deferred loans. So the first one is just a deferred loan. In-school monthly payment is $0, so you're not required to make any payments. Once again, you can if you choose to do that, but you're not expected to, so there's $0. There's interest accruing on this while the student is in college. So this is not subsidized, unlike the federal loan. This is unsubsidized. When the loan enters repayment, which is 6 months after the student graduates or leaves the program, that interest gets capitalized and adds to the principal. So your monthly payment is now fixed on paying this down over 11 years, because if you deferred it for 4 years, you've got 11 left. That's going to make your monthly payment $273.38 a month. It's going to make the overall cost of the loan $36,086. So we're up about $10,000 from over here. The last loan that we have is another deferred loan. The difference is that there's an option on this loan where after the first 48 consecutive monthly payments are made on time, the parent can apply to be removed from that loan as a co-applicant. To think about that, that's 4 years of deferment and then 4 years of payment, so it's about 8 years down the road. And it's at our highest interest rate right now, which is 6.85%. Monthly payment amount on that is $277.84, so the highest once again, and just a little bit higher actually than the deferred loans, $36,674. So the principle being, it's really up to you. If you can manage the monthly payments earlier and paying principal and interest, it's much less expensive over the long run. But it really depends on your financial picture. If that's not doable, then this is perfectly acceptable as well. Now, the other thing is here, this is after 1 year, okay? These monthly payments, $215, $163 dollars, $216, $273, $277 for $27,000. So we're really in between $150 and $270. Multiply that by 4, and you'll get, an idea of what it's going to be like to repaying if you're looking at 4 years of this college. So it can be a lot of money, but just to have a plan in place to sort of pay that down. If you can avoid borrowing all $20,000, if you can, do a monthly payment. Here we are, a pathway to paying the balance due. So in this example, we have $20,000. You could borrow $20,000, and this is what it looks like, anywhere from $163 to $277 a month. You could, if you're able to do so, pay $2,000 a month every month on a monthly payment plan and not borrow anything. If we could all do that, we should all do that. But, that's not the reality for many people, and I understand that. Certainly wouldn't be for me. But we have a balance due here in this example of $20,000. If you can use some from each, it can make a big difference. So as we see here, in this example, $20,000, using some past income, student savings of $1,000, maybe it's from a summer job, parent savings of $4,000, that's $5,000 right off the bat there. In this example here, we have $5,000 parent contribution to a payment plan, so that's $500 a month, maybe over 10 months. Again, don't know if you'll be able to do it exactly like that. Don't know if I would either, but this is the example. Leaving $10,000 to borrow. So $10,000, if you take these amounts here and sort of halve them, you'll get a good idea of how much you're going to be saving over the long run. Again, remember, after 4 years of this, if you are a parent and you're on this loan as well, you're equally responsible with the student to repay this. So this monthly payment is going to be very important to you. So looking forward to what's coming up next. What's going to happen now, you have to make your deposit either by May 1st or a later date. The fall semester bill will be sent in June or July, and it'll be due in July or August. People want to know what a good time frame is to start applying for private loans. I can tell you for MIFA, you can start applying typically around April, beginning of April for the upcoming year. I wouldn't leave it to anywhere sooner than within 4 weeks or so between when the school needs the funds and when you apply, just to give you an idea of what the process is. For MIFA at least, you can do a loan application on the website, on the phone. Once you hit submit, it's going to do a credit check and notify you what you've been approved for. And just, actually, I didn't mention this one thing. I want to skip back 2 more slides here. You need a higher credit score to be approved for the deferred loans than you do for the immediate repay loans. So those last 2 deferred loans here are going to be you're going to need a higher credit score to be approved for these. So you might see all of these options. If you after you hit submit for the MEF loan, you might see only these 3 options if you're approved, and if you're not approved, you wouldn't see any of those options. But so you're going to hit submit. It's going to let you know what you're approved for, and then all parties on the loan would have to complete the promissory note or the MEF loan agreement and self-certification form. You can all do that the same day. After that, colleges get notified and they certify the loan, and they basically certify the students enrolled there that they're eligible for that amount of money, because we can only send funds directly to a college. And so, if a college says that it costs $50,000 to go there, you've got $30,000 in financial aid, they're probably not going to certify anything more than the remaining amount, the remaining $20,000. So they could lower that amount. The school ultimately has the final say on how much money you're going to get from MEFA, because they can't accept anything in excess of the cost of attendance minus any other financial aid received. So if you have questions about whether off-campus housing is part of the cost of attendance, or how much a college will certify for, that again goes to the financial aid office. Set up payment plans according to the college website, so you can be on the lookout too for orientation and other notifications. If you have work-study awards and you want to know how that works, you can contact the college either late in the summer or in the beginning of the fall semester. Well, you can still apply for private scholarships as well. So there are basically 2 tracks to applying for outside scholarships or private scholarships. The first one being local scholarships, and you should check with the guidance counselor office at the high school for that. They typically have the best resources on local scholarships and local organizations and businesses and what they're doing. Nationally, you can go to a scholarship search engine and set up a profile and create an account and see what scholarships you may be eligible to apply for. Never pay to have a scholarship search done. We have some that we refer families to, and they're all free, and we sort of feel good about referring them there. MEFApathway.org, collegeboard.org, fastweb.com, studentscholarshipsearch.com, and also we have various scholarship organizations contacting us all the time, asking us to post or to tweet information about their scholarship. So if you follow us on Facebook or Twitter or both, we do that a few times a week. So you can still be applying for private scholarships, and should be. One option here is to go the public route, and there's a really great program called the Mass Transfer Program, and basically this is designed at the state level to help students in Massachusetts graduate, go through a 4-year program at public colleges, and graduate debt-free with very little debt. So the way the program works is there's a student starts off at a 2-year community college. They can transfer all, if not most, of their credits over to a 4-year public college in Massachusetts. If they have over a certain GPA, they're guaranteed admission and and can be admitted without an application essay. If they have over another threshold, there's a tuition freeze that gets added, and they can be rebated tuition if they maintain that GPA through their 4-year program. The website is mass.edu/masstransfer. It's a really, really great program. We always recommend that wherever we go. So there was, once upon a time, more of a maybe stigma on public community colleges or even some 4-year public, but it's thankfully that's dissipated, and it's just such a good way to get your education with as little debt as possible, and a lot of work has really gone into making that and sort of expanding that public good. So it's definitely something that we always recommend is part of the picture when a student is looking at where to apply and different pathways that they can choose and to go through college. So actually, if you want to attend, log on to MEFA Pathway and use the Mass Benefits page. It'll tell you not only if you have specific, I'm going from Roxbury Community College to UMass Boston, it'll tell you how much money you're saving. So it's a real eye opener. So I really recommend that you do that. The other program that we have is Tuition Break. Tuition Break is a program through the New England Board of Higher Education, and that is basically if you wanted to attend a public college in Massachusetts because you wanted to be sort of as fiscally responsible as you could be, but you wanted to study something that wasn't offered in a public college or university in Massachusetts, if it is offered in a public college or university in another New England state or participating state, you could attend that college and pay a greatly reduced tuition rate. So that's dependent upon program, but you should look at it as New England Board of Higher Education. So that's the website down there, nevi.org/programs overview tuition break. So lastly, I've said it a few times, but your financial aid office is a resource. So if you have questions that are outstanding between you and the financial aid office, definitely don't be shy, don't be nervous to contact them. Reach out to them with any questions that you might have. If you have scholarships that have come through from outside organizations, you don't know how they're going to look at that, reach out to them. Can you appeal your financial aid award? So that's always a question that we get. If you want more financial aid, can you appeal your award? I always say that yes, you can, especially if, now it may or may not work. You may get more financial aid from college, you may not, but it can't hurt really to ask. I talked to somebody that worked in a financial aid office and asked her what worked, what was a good thing to do when you're appealing your financial aid award. And she had some really good ideas. And the first thing that she said was, of course, be polite and talk about how much the student wants to attend this school. Have a plan. So say, I know how I'm going to pay for this. We're going to borrow this amount. We get this amount saved. We're going to get this amount in from Aunt whoever. All we need, if you could give us this amount, it would make it a lot easier. So to have a specific goal in mind or specific request, that would go further, makes it easier for the financial aid office. It doesn't always mean that, of course, that they'll grant it, but it makes it easier than just asking for the college to give you some unspecified amount of money or to meet another college's financial aid award. Definitely let the college know if there are changes in family circumstances, divorces, deaths in the family, job losses, anything that's going to impact your ability to pay negatively. They can make adjustments if necessary. So just contact them and be ready to document. And then, any information that you need, open house, orientation programs, additional financial resources. One other thing that adds to this too is not just changes in family circumstances, but if there is something on the financial aid, especially the FAFSA asks very specific questions, and they want specific answers, but it doesn't always get to the truth of the situation and all its complexity. So if there are things like medical bills that you're paying, and they don't ask about that on the FAFSA. If there's just anything that really changes the picture that the college is unaware of, I would reach out to the college and let them know, because as I said, they can make changes to the formula if they see fit. They may or may not do so, but they can't do it if they don't know. So that's what I would say. Now, what's next? Pay any enrollment deposit required by the deadline, no matter when that is, May 1st or later. Make plans to attend orientation. The biggest thing, of course, create a plan as a family to pay the balance due. And if you want to sign up for our emails, if you don't receive those already, I would recommend it. Please visit MEFA.org to take advantage of those calculators, that particularly the loan ones, I think are going to be really important in the coming weeks to you. take advantage of one-on-one counseling with the MEFA team, definitely call us, email us. Follow us on social media. We're always posting information on relevant topics upcoming, and always sort of blasting out information on scholarships, as I said. If you have any questions, I know some of you do, I'll answer those now. If you like the webinar, please give us some feedback on Google, leave us a Google review. Otherwise, that's our phone number, that's our email address. Definitely call us, let us know if you have questions, and I'll start to answer some of your questions now.